friends, let's talk about tomatoes tonight. So I'm out here in my high tunnel and I'm about to get picking on some tomatoes to bring to the farmer's market tomorrow, and I wanted to show you all the different ways that we are growing tomatoes this year. So let's start right here with my row of cherry tomatoes. This row of cherry tomatoes is 50 feet long and it goes right down the center of the high tunnel. They are trellised on string trellises that are attached to the top bar of the high tunnel, and we are using clips to clip the tomato stems to the strings. And each plant has about 2, some 3, some 1 leaders that are coming up from the base of the plant, which I'll just show you in just a minute. We've got about 4, 5 varieties of cherry tomatoes here. Let's take a look. First up, we have the black strawberry, which is one of my favorites. These take quite a while to ripen, so even though they are dark purple on top, we're looking for red underneath. So we're going to look down here at these very first set of tomatoes that were fruit that were set. And this little truss right here is getting pretty ripe. I've been wanting to wait until the whole truss ripened, or at least till everything's blushing before I picked it, just so that I could have a beautiful little truss of these amazing looking strawberries. And they're super tasty too. I could probably pick some of those to bring to the market tomorrow, and I might, depending on what my overall harvest looks like, but I would rather leave them on there so I can harvest that whole truss together. Next up is Brad's Atomic Grape. So they've got similar coloring to those black strawberries, that beautiful purple from the anthocyanins in the plant. Those show up really early on in the maturity of the tomato, and those are the anthocyanins, the purple, is from direct contact with the sun. So what I really loved last year was that when I would pick things like this, you could see underneath the blossom part of the stem, there would be almost like this little star-shaped type tattoo or something like that, where it was green and not purple. So I've never grown this variety before. I've heard lots of good things about them. They are huge, not what I expected about a grape tomato. They are huge. And I got these from a seed swap that I went to. The Pierce County Conservation District hosted a seed swap that I went to. Look at this. It's the same variety and it's huge. Supposedly a grape tomato. It's huge. It's going to be amazing. The plants are super full, so they're very prolific. We just need to wait for them to ripen up. Next in line are my sun golds. Sun golds are one of my favorites, and sadly this section of the high tunnel is not doing well. So this area stays really saturated, the soil stays really saturated, and I'm assuming that's why they're not doing as well. You can see they're totally full, looking healthy, looking kind of unhealthy, and then back up this way they thicken out a lot again, and that's exactly where the soil stays moist. As you can see, the soil is really dark right there as compared to up here. So that's part of the natural lay of the land here, but also it dips, and I think the irrigation just pools, and that's what we're dealing with here. Are you here to say hello? We're so glad that you're here. Over 4th of July, Warrior ran off and we lost her for about a week. We were so sad, and then I got a phone call from the shelter and someone found her and brought her in. She was microchipped and they were able to contact us and let us know. We were over the moon excited, and now we have a caller for her with her name and our phone number, so that's going to be helpful, but keeping it on her has been tricky. The Sun Golds have been one of my favorites for quite a few years in a row. Always good performers, except for this year, not doing so well in here, but we'll show you in just a little bit that we've got some outside that are doing really well as compared to these ones. The boys are outside the high tunnel right there picking blueberries. Ben's listening to a book. Bill's out there moving wood chips. Next up in the tomato lineup, we've got Purple Bumblebee, and they are looking good. I never quite understood why they were called Purple Bumblebee, because they never really quite turned purple. That's the color they've always been for me, is more of like a red, but they've got a little bit of variegation to them, and they're pretty tasty. They're super prolific, and these plants, the plants themselves have been super bushy and stocky and sending off a million, oh golly, what do you call them? Very healthy, sturdy plants. The rooster's on the loose. We moved the chicken space tonight, so everybody's on the loose. Next up, we've got the Sweet Million cherry tomatoes. This is my first time growing this variety, and the plants are loaded, and I just sampled one earlier tonight, and it is indeed sweet and delicious, and I'm sure I'll be continuing to keep this one in the lineup next year. These last two plants on the end are the winners in height growth. It's about 2 feet from the top, so golly, I forget how tall my tunnel is. I'm guessing these are about 8 feet right now. This is a Jean Flamme, and I bought these as starts from a local botanical garden place, and they're Laughing Goat Botanical Gardens for you local folks, and they were huge. Just the very beginning of the season, they were always super huge. Hey buddy! Whoa, look at all those blueberries!
Am I done?
Yes, thank you, mister.
Yay.
Go. Oh, hold on, buddy. Go ahead and go put those on the kitchen counter. Don't spill them on your way in, though.
Get on my dessert.
Yep, you can have your dessert.
No,
Hey, you get out of here. You get out of here. Yeah, you got plenty of other places to be. Get.
Mom, I changed my mind. I no longer just want to go up to here. I want to fill it up to here.
Oh, top notch.
Yeah.
Thank you, Finn.
So now I'm going to go do that.
Okay, thank you, buddy. Back to the Jean Flamme. So these fruits are like a saladette size, super tasty. The skins at the beginning were looking a little, I don't know, kind of spotty. Nothing I wouldn't mind eating, but for selling at the market, I was less than excited. There's one of the little spots there. That's no big deal though. They are full of fruit, doing great, and I think I will probably keep these in the lineup again next year. I'll just save some seeds from these plants. Now you can see here the leaves are not super great looking, but I believe that's just because these are on the end of the drip irrigation, and they're just not, the soil's not staying as hydrated as well as it should. And so whenever I get a chance and I'm in here watering with the hose for any other reason, I always make sure I give this end extra water as well. Here's a sneak peek at my pepper rows, but we're not talking about peppers tonight, just tomatoes. Okay, so that was the cherry tomatoes. Next row, way more disappointing. Okay, not way more disappointing, because this row is not disappointing at all. These two rows were planted much later than these. The soil itself wasn't even, the rows itself and the soil in them weren't even established at the same point in time, so the soil didn't have as much time to settle in, and they're just not doing as well, and that is okay. I still have tomatoes in my freezer from last year, so I'm not stressing. This whole row is all of my large slicing tomatoes, and they're pretty small right now, so I'm not going to go through the varieties because it doesn't really help for you to look at these little tiny green tomatoes. So we'll have to come back and talk about those another time. But this is a good time for me to show you the clip system. So these clips are super handy. They just clip right to the string and keep everything nice and tidy. Before I show you the rest of the tomatoes, let me give you just a little bit of reference of where we are in relation to the high tunnel where we just worked. So this garden is off of our barn area, which is directly behind our house, and the high tunnel is over there. Bill's mowing right now with the tractor, so I apologize if it's a bit loud, but you gotta just get that work done. So this garden is our garden that is new this year, and I've been loving it. It's doing fabulously. And I'm gonna tell you more about this space in another video, but today we're just talking about tomatoes, and I'm excited to share with you my tomato tunnel. So this is the second year I have grown a tomato tunnel, and let me sit you down and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Last year was my first year growing a tomato tunnel, and the tomatoes were great. It was super healthy, lush, tomatoes everywhere. However, I didn't achieve my goal of the tomatoes coming up and all the way around because I never really stayed on top of the pruning. And that is the key strategy you want to implement when doing this, because you want your tomatoes to grow up and not to bush out. So here I am in my tomato tunnel. This is all cherry tomatoes. It's the same varieties as I showed you there in the high tunnel. They're just out here in the field, and they are doing fabulous. This morning I came through and I tied up the first few cattle panels and did a ton of pruning. I didn't finish tying them all up, but I was focused mostly on just pruning off all the suckers that I didn't want so we could really focus that growth. And then hopefully today, well, not today, in the next couple of days, I'll be able to come back and tie those up and direct them up and over these arches. Let's take a look. I started the tunnel off with my sun golds because of course they're my favorite. So they're doing great. They're just as productive out here as in the high tunnel, and they got started, oh golly, I don't even remember when they were planted in relation to the tunnel, but it doesn't really matter. So I've been weaving these in and out, pruning off suckers as much as I can, and you can see here they get away from me pretty quickly, but I just really need to focus that growth on going up. Ooh, this is going to be a tough one to bend. So you got to be real careful if you're bending them through, just on making sure they don't snap. Oh boy. Another thing you got to be really careful with is when you're handling them and there are newly formed fruit, that you're super careful because they're very prone to falling off when you're handling them at that stage. So these are all watered by overhead sprinkler. You can see it's right there. And then I have another one over there. I wasn't able to get the drip irrigation in this year, but these sprinklers are automated, so that has been a huge help. Let's take a walk down the tunnel. You can see I've started pruning off the lower leaves so I can expose that fruit. And well, that's as far as I got for tying up. They've been tied up several times before, but now I need to get in here and tie them up some more and keep pruning all the time. So I'm really hoping that we'll get to the top. We've got, let's see, a solid 2.5 months to get to the top before the frost. I think we can do it. Whoa, this one definitely needs to be tied up, but we'll get there. Goals, right? You gotta have goals. So that's it for the cherry tomatoes out here in the field, but there are more tomatoes. Now, this is pretty much the complete opposite in pruning methods than my tomato tunnel. And I wouldn't exactly call this a method, but it's just the result of not trellising them. So these are my slicing tomatoes, and it's a 50-foot row of wild tomato bushes. It's a hot mess. And I haven't pruned them once. I haven't trellised them once. I think we went on vacation right after we planted these. I don't know what my excuse is, but never got to it. And by the time I had time available, they were pretty much just too big to trellis. So I said, what the heck? I'm not going to stress out. We're just going to let it be. Now, there are a ton of fruits on these. These are kicking butt compared to the ones. Oh no, oh no. Look at this, guys. I've already have rotting fruit. So this is going to be part of the problem of not pruning and trellising your tomatoes and overhead watering. So that's kind of a bummer. The chickens will be happy with those. But I've got some others in here. I'll just need to make sure that, oh man, that looks so good. I pick them super early when they start blushing so that they're barely ripe and finish their ripening in the house. And that's going to be how I'm going to keep these, my best bet on keeping these from rotting. Oh lordy, just look at that. Look at that. I don't even have a walkway anymore. That's just one row. There should be like about 36 inches walkway here. Got some beans and sunflowers going over this way. Wow. Goodness. I think I'm going to probably come through and prune at least. Open up some airflow and be able to maybe find some of the tomatoes that are in here. Oh golly. Wow. I couldn't begin to tell you what's what because I have no clue where the tags are. And let's get through here. Oh, another ripe one. Oh, it's a beauty. Let's get it picked. Come on. All right. Looks like I just injured it a little bit. That puppy is ripe. Skin's a little rough. How was the mowing?
It's good.
This is the last section of tomatoes that we've got here on the farm this year. This row right here, it's not a full 50-foot row because I've got some cosmos on part of it. It's probably about 35 feet. And these are all Roma tomatoes. So these are all determinate tomatoes. And the purpose of planting them separately than those indeterminate slicers that I just showed you is because the trellising methods are going to be different. Isn't that funny? That's if you actually trellis them. So these as well, nothing was trellised, nothing has been pruned. With these guys, I'm not going to prune anything because your determinate tomatoes are going to bush out and they're going to put their fruit on all at once and they're not going to continue growing and producing more fruit. So everything that it puts out, that's going to be a limited amount. And so I am going to keep them. Now, I might go through here and prune for a little airflow. We'll see. Haven't even taken the time to come look through here yet. I see some green fruits. They're still pretty small. But here they are. These are my aromas, and I can't wait for them to ripen up and we can make some food out of them. I was just talking with Bill how crazy productive this garden area has been, and we haven't fertilized once. Hold on. We didn't add any compost. We haven't added any fertilizer. This is all just raw ground that we tilled this spring. And like I said earlier, I will make another video telling you more about the creation of this garden plot another time. Today, I just wanted to update you on all of our tomatoes because I'm out here picking them to bring to the market tomorrow. Also, side note, tomatillos, I got a ton of those as well. And you bet you guessed right, they're not trellised either, and they're gonna be great, and I can't wait to share them with the community. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and my tomatoes tonight. I hope you enjoyed our little tomato talk. I can't wait to show you how we're gonna preserve these tomatoes. I'm not gonna be doing as much tomato preservation this year as I did last year because I still have preserved tomatoes in our pantry, in the freezer. So a lot of these tomatoes are gonna be going to our community at the farmer's market. Thank you again for taking the time to hang out and watch this. If you've enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and have a great night.